It was the winter of 2014 when everything in my life seemed to be slipping through my fingers. I was 23, newly graduated, and already exhausted with the world. People don't talk about the strange, heavy kind of emptiness that comes when you're young and already feel like you've run out of options. My friends had moved to bigger cities, gotten jobs, or started relationships. Meanwhile, I moved back into my parents' house because I couldn't afford rent, let alone the repairs my car needed after the transmission gave out. Most days, I woke up, stared at my phone, waiting for an email that never came, and struggled with the sinking realization that my degree meant nothing in a town where the most stable jobs were at the grocery store or at the lumber mill 2 counties over. There was only one thing that made me feel remotely alive: abandoned places. I don't know how to explain the pull they had on me. Something about peeling paint, rust-stained corners, hallways where footsteps haven't echoed in decades. It all felt like stepping into a moment frozen outside of time. I photographed everything: forgotten barns swallowed by vines, decrepit theaters with collapsed ceilings, dead shopping malls with dusty mannequins still staring out of cracked display windows. Those places reminded me of something I couldn't quite articulate. Maybe that everything ends eventually, and not always with closure. One night, while scrolling through an urban exploration forum, I found a thread titled, "Anyone been to Meridian Research Facility?" Most threads got maybe 5 replies. This one had hundreds. People shared blurry photos of a concrete compound hidden deep in the woods. Others mentioned strange noises, sealed doors, warnings, or the feeling of being watched. One post claimed the place had been partially demolished by the government in the early 2000s, yet most buildings were still intact. Rumors spread through the comments like wildfire. Secret psychological experiments, biological testing, radiation leaks, people going missing, a sealed lower wing no one had ever accessed. Most of it sounded like nonsense, but in a life where every day felt the same, the idea of exploring somewhere truly unknown pulled at me like gravity. A friend from the next county confirmed it existed. He'd seen it once, from a distance. "It feels wrong," he said simply. "Don't go." But the next week, after another round of job rejection emails, I packed my camera gear, filled a thermos with coffee, and left at midnight. The road to the facility was more forest than road, a twisting, narrow path with branches scraping my windshield. My GPS lost signal 10 minutes in. The deeper I drove, the colder it seemed to get, despite the car heater blasting warm air toward my feet. It took 40 minutes to reach the perimeter fence, 10 feet high, topped with rusted, barbed wire that sagged in several places. The fence was coated in frost, glinting faintly in my headlights. A sign hung crookedly from one post, its letters nearly unreadable. "Federal property, nitrogen monoxide, trespassing violators will be prosecuted." Below that, sprayed in red paint, "Turn back." I killed the engine and stepped out into the freezing night. The silence was suffocating. Even the forest seemed to be holding its breath. A segment of fence had collapsed under a fallen tree. I stepped through. Immediately a sensation washed over me, like walking into a place where the air itself carries memory. The facilities sprawled across several acres, grey concrete buildings with shattered windows. Steel doors hanging on broken hinges, storage silos, ventilation towers, and long corridors exposed to the elements. It looked like something between a prison and a chemical plant. The moon hung high above the treetops, illuminating long skeletal shadows stretching across the ground. I began inside the administration building. Dust tickled my lungs. The air smelled like wet paper, mildew, and old chemicals. My flashlight cut through the dark in narrow beams, revealing debris, fallen ceiling tiles, smashed monitors, and stacks of files eaten by mold. Every sound echoed just a little too long. After 30 minutes of exploring empty rooms and courtyards, I found myself in a long hallway that felt different. It was colder than the others, not winter cold, something deeper, sharper. At the far end sat a thick steel door sealed shut with a row of rusted industrial bolts. Unlike the other doors, this one had no windows, no handles, no hinges on the outside. A stenciled warning covered the door in fading yellow paint. Restricted wing, biosafety level 4. Authorized access only. Breach protocol mandatory, below it, in red spray paint. Don't open, they listen. A chill climbed my spine. The bolts looked ancient, fused with rust, except someone had begun loosening them. 3 hung crooked. 1 lay discarded on the floor. Another was half unscrewed, like whoever began the job was interrupted. Every part of me said stop. But some terrible, stupid part of me, the part desperate for something to feel real, started turning the bolts. It took 15 minutes. Each one screeched like metal dying. When I pulled the door open, a long breath of frigid air rolled over me. The temperature dropped so drastically my hands numbed instantly. The smell hit next, metallic, sharp, almost like blood and something chemical beneath it. The flashlight flickered. Not dead, flickering, like something interfered with it. Still, I stepped inside. The hallway beyond was narrower than the others, bleak, smooth concrete. No windows, no graffiti. No signs of other explorers. The walls seemed to swallow sound. Even my breathing felt muted. 20 feet in, the hall opened into a large circular chamber with metal tables overturned, broken glass glittering under the flashlight, and file cabinets pried open. A thick layer of dust covered everything, but the walls were covered in deep gouges. Not scratches, gouges, carved so violently that some chunks of concrete had fallen onto the floor. They clustered near the bottom, as if something low to the ground had clawed frantically at them for hours, days, maybe longer. I crouched, running my fingers over one. It was deeper than the length of my first knuckle. That's when I heard it. A soft, deliberate tap from the dark hallway behind me. I froze. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, measured, like someone gently dragging a fingernail across metal. My breath fogged in front of my face. "Hello?" I whispered, and instantly regretted it. The tapping stopped. The silence felt alive. I rose slowly, lifting the flashlight toward the hall. The beam shook in my trembling hand. The tapping resumed, closer now. Too close. My heart punched against my ribs, hard enough to hurt. I stepped backward, eyes fixed on the doorway. Something moved in the hall, a faint shift of shadow. Not fast, deliberate. Almost studying me. My flashlight flickered again, then cut out entirely. The darkness was absolute. I fumbled through my backpack, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped everything. When I finally clicked on the backup flashlight, its beam illuminated the hallway, and something was standing there. A silhouette, tall, angular, limbs too long, shoulders too narrow. Its posture was hunched, spine arched in a way no human could achieve. Its head tilted slightly, as if listening. It didn't move, didn't react to the light, just stood there, perfectly still. Then its head rotated. Not naturally, not like a person turning. It twisted in a slow, scraping motion, like joints grinding together after decades of disuse. I stumbled backward, breath catching. The thing took one step forward. A sound followed, a dragging sound, like long nails scraping concrete. I turned and ran. My footsteps echoed violently. The hall seemed longer, stretching with every step. Behind me, the scraping grew louder, faster, accompanied by a soft, rhythmic clicking like bones tapping in sequence. I didn't look back, not once. When I burst through the door into the main building, warmth slammed into me like a physical force. My flashlight steadied. The heavy silence lifted, but I could still hear something faint, tapping, slow again, fading into the distance behind me. I sprinted out of the building, through the courtyard, past the fence, and into the forest. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. Even after I locked the doors, I kept clutching the steering wheel like a lifeline. For weeks afterward, I told myself my mind had played tricks on me, that the shadows were illusions, that the tapping was pipes contracting, that the silhouette was a trick of bad lighting and fear. But 2 nights later, as I tried to sleep, I heard something faint inside the house. Soft, slow, deliberate, tap, tap, drag. Moving across the floorboards outside my bedroom. My parents were asleep. The house was silent. My door was locked. But the tapping came right up to the other side of it and stopped. I didn't open the door. I still haven't, even years later, when I hear it sometimes, that soft clicking, as if something long and thin is tracing its fingers along the wall. I don't know what escaped the Meridian Research Facility. I don't know if it followed me. I don't even know if it was ever confined at all. But I know one thing. Some doors were never meant to be opened. And some things never stop listening for you. It's strange how a building can sit forgotten for decades, yet still feel like it's watching you. That's the best way I can describe what happened at the Cold Water Hill Nursing Home, the place my friends dared me to explore back when I was 19. Still stupid and convinced that fear was something you could outrun just by pretending to be brave. I've never told anyone the full story. People know bits and pieces, enough to joke that I used to be fun before I became the quiet, cautious person I am now. But no one knows the real reason I can't walk past abandoned buildings anymore. No one knows what I heard in there, what I saw, what followed me out. but I'll try to tell it the way it felt. The slow dread, the cold pressure behind my ribs, the sense that every hallway was a throat and I was walking down into its lungs. And I will start at the beginning. Coldwater Hill was one of those places you'd never notice unless someone pointed it out. Nature had half absorbed it, vines curling up its walls, saplings cracking the pavement. The sign at the front, rusted green and unreadable except for the faint outline of the words, Coldwater Hill Retirement and Convalescence Center. The locals called it the Old Well because anything that went in never came out the same. The building had been abandoned for nearly 40 years. I didn't know all the urban legends then. I didn't know about the patients who supposedly went missing. I didn't know about the accusations of mistreatment, or the nurse who allegedly locked the doors during a fire drill because she wanted to see which patients could save themselves. All I knew was that my 3 friends, Devin, Kyle and Mia, wanted to explore the place at night, and I didn't want to be the one who backed out. We parked on the service road around 11 p.m., the air cold enough to bite the back of my throat. The building loomed in the dark like a giant hunched animal, sagging in places, but somehow still imposing. When Kyle swung his flashlight toward the windows, I swear I saw something white flick back out of sight, like someone leaning away. I told myself it was dust reflecting the beam, or a raccoon, or anything except what it looked like. We climbed through a broken side window, Kyle first, then Mia, then me. Devin stayed behind, claiming he'd keep watch, though in hindsight I think he just didn't want to go in. The moment my feet touched the linoleum, the smell hit me. Not mold, not dust, though those were there too. This was different, sweet and sour at the same time, like rotting syrup, almost metallic. I think something died in here, Mia muttered. Kyle laughed. It's an old folks' home. A lot of things probably died in here. If I'd known how true that was, I think I would have climbed right back out the window. The floors were littered with crumbling insulation, overturned chairs, broken ceiling panels. Every step echoed weirdly, as if the silence in the place pushed back at any sound we made. When we reached the main hall, my flashlight flickered. Not fully off, just strained, like the darkness was heavier there. Let's go to the patient rooms, Kyle said. That's where the good stuff will be. I didn't want to see good stuff, whatever that meant. I mostly wanted to get back outside, breathe fresh air, and go home. But the others were already halfway down the hall, so I followed. The doors were numbered with peeling gold stickers. Room 12A, Room 12B, Room 14, Room 15. Most were empty, stripped bare long ago. But some weren't. In one, I found a metal bed frame bolted to the floor. No mattress, but straps still hung from the rails. 4 of them, one at each corner. The leather was cracked and stiff, but it hadn't rotted completely. Restraints, Mia whispered behind me. Jesus, they used restraints in here. It was the 70s, Kyle said dismissively. They probably thought they were helping. I didn't answer. I was too busy staring at the wall opposite the bed, where long scratches gouged the paint. Deep ones, parallel, frantic. A whole section of the plaster looked like it had been ripped away by clawed fingers. I reached out and hovered my fingers over the grooves. They weren't old and soft. They were sharp-edged, as if carved recently. That made no sense. Nothing about this place had been recently in nearly half a century. Kyle tugged my arm. "Come on, man, don't fall behind." We kept walking. The deeper we went, the colder the air became. Not the normal chill of an unheated building. This was colder than the outside night. A basement kind of cold. A morgue kind of cold. Mia rubbed her arms. "Is it just me, or does it feel like we're being led somewhere?" "Don't say creepy stuff like that," Carl said. "You're gonna freak out." A sound cut him off. A soft shuffle. Coming from the next hallway. Not an animal, not wind. A human shuffle. Mia froze. Kaya lifted his flashlight. I felt my heartbeat crawl up my throat. "Probably Devin messing with us," Carl whispered, though he didn't sound convinced. We followed the sound. The hallway opened into a large common area. Dusty couches, overturned tables, a piano with most of the keys ripped out. My flashlight scanned the room. Movement. Something pale near the far wall, slipping between two doorways. "Did you see that?" Mia breathed. "Probably a raccoon," Carl muttered, but he didn't align his flashlight with it again. I stepped closer to the wall. There were faded posters still taped up. Good behavior charts, schedules, hand-painted reminders like sing-along night and bingo at 7 p.m. Then I saw the board. It was one of those laminated dry erase boards, still screwed into the wall, despite everything else being broken. At the top, in faded marker, were the words, "Today's activities." But the activities were new. Not old smeared handwriting, new dark strokes, written recently. Breakfast, 7 a.m. Medication to 9 a.m. Supervised exercise, 1 p.m. Evening restraints to 6 p.m. Lights out, 7 p.m. Check on room 19 to 7:15 p.m. I felt a cold pulse in my chest. "Guys," I whispered, "there's something wrong with this." Carl walked over and laughed nervously. "Probably a prank. Someone must have been here before us." "No," I said. "These markers aren't 40 years old. And look at the last line." He read it. His smile faded. "Okay, that is creepy." Mia's voice shook. "Room 19, did we pass that already?" "No," Kyle said. "We're in the 10s. That'll be further down the hall. I don't know why we kept going. Maybe because turning back felt like admitting we were already scared. Maybe because curiosity pulls harder when fear wants you to run. Either way, we kept walking. We found room 19 at the end of a narrow hall that felt colder than the others. My breath fogged when I exhaled. The door was half open, scraping softly back and forth with the draft, as if someone had just walked through it. Kyle nudged it wider with his foot. The room was nearly empty. Bed frame, rusted four-stand, wheelchair in the corner, and a shape behind the door. A human shape. Tall, thin, facing the window. Mia gasped and stumbled back into me. Kyle froze. I lifted my flashlight, but the beam wavered like the air itself was twisting. The figure didn't turn around, didn't move, didn't breathe. "Sir," Kyle said shakily, "are you okay?" "Nothing." I took a step closer. The figure shifted, not turning, twitching, Like a puppet, someone was trying to move by tugging strings from the wrong direction. One shoulder jerked upward, then snapped back down. That's when my flashlight steadied and we saw its face. It wasn't a man, not anymore. The skin was grey, yellow, and sagging, like melted wax. The eyes were open but clouded, and the mouth was sewn shut with black thread. Old, brittle stitches pulling tight across cracked, dried lips. Mia screamed. The thing jerked violently, head snapping toward us. The stitches tore with a wet ripping sound, and a gasp of air hissed out of its throat. I didn't think. I just turned and ran. Kyle was behind me. Mia was ahead of me. All of us sprinting blindly down the hallway, while something staggered after us with uneven, dragging steps. We didn't speak. We didn't look back. We just ran until we reached the main hall, where a new sound stopped us cold. A bell. Ding, 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 ding. Slow, echoing. Coming from the activity room we'd passed earlier. Kyle whispered, "What? What is that?" Before I could answer, a voice drifted down the hall. Old, raspy, half breath, half groan. "Back to your rooms." Mia grabbed my arm. "We need to leave, now." We rang. When we reached the window, we came through. Devin was gone. The car was still there, but the passenger door hung open. The front seat was empty. The air outside looked colder, heavier, like the night itself had thickened. Kyle climbed out first. Mia followed. I was halfway through the window when the hallway lights flickered on. The whole building buzzed. The fluorescent lights, dead for decades, flickered weakly to life, casting pale, trembling lines of white along the halls, and in that light I saw them. Figures, dozens, standing at the end of the hall. Patients or the remains of them, some strapped to gurneys, some leaning crookedly on walkers, some crawling on hands that bent the wrong way, all staring silently toward us with milky eyes. One of them raised a hand, a nurse's uniform hanging off its frail frame, and whispered, "Lights out." I fell through the window, hit the ground hard, and scrambled to my feet. The three of us ran to the car. Kyle was screaming for Devin. Mia was crying. I was fumbling the keys with shaking hands. When the headlights came on, I saw Devin, standing motionless in front of the tree line. At first I thought he was just frozen in fear, but when we ran toward him, I saw the truth. His mouth was sewn shut, just like the thing in room 19. The stitches looked fresh, the skin around them torn, bleeding. His eyes were wide, terrified, but he couldn't make a sound. We got him into the car and sped away, leaving Coldwater Hill behind us. None of us spoke. Not that night, not for weeks. Devin recovered physically. The doctors never figured out who did it or how he'd been taken without us hearing. He claimed not to remember anything after we entered the building. Kyle moved states 6 months later. Mia won't talk to me about that night. And me? I moved away too, far away. But I still dream about that building. I dream of the lights flickering on. I dream of the stitched mouths. I dream of the nurse whispering "lights out." And every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I hear something, a faint bell. Ding, 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 like roll call is starting again, and they're still waiting for me to return to my room. I've worked as a park ranger for most of my life, long enough to know that forests can hold memories, not in the way people do, with photographs or stories, but in a deeper, more instinctive way. Trees don't forget what happens beneath them. Soil doesn't forget what's buried inside it. And some places, they remember everything. Black Pines was one of those places. I was assigned there in the winter of 2017, filling in for a ranger who'd quit abruptly. The official explanation was personal reasons, but the other rangers told me the truth. He'd locked himself inside the station one night and refused to come out until the sheriff personally escorted him back to town. They said he was pale, trembling, repeating the same thing over and over. "The forest knows my name." I thought it was a joke. I wish I still did. Black Pines had 3 ranger stations originally, but 2 had burned down years before. The third, the one I was assigned to, sat near the base of the eastern ridge. A squat concrete structure, half swallowed by trees that had grown right up against the walls. It didn't look abandoned, it looked forgotten. When I first stepped in, I noticed the silence. Ranger stations always have noise. Radios, wind through cracks, pipes ticking, something. This one felt sealed off from the world, like the forest had wrapped itself too tightly around it. The previous ranger, the one who'd fled, had left most of his things behind. Sleeping bag, boots, notebooks, even half a mug of coffee that had turned moldy on his desk. I remember thinking, what could scare a grown man so badly he wouldn't even pack? I would find out soon enough. My first 2 days were uneventful. I did the usual rounds, checked the ridgeline, made sure the perimeter trails weren't washed out, verified that campers were following guidelines. Nothing strange. The first odd thing happened on day 3. I was reviewing old incident logs, something I always do when I take over a station, and I noticed something in the margins of one of the notebooks. A scribble written so faintly it was nearly erased. Station 3 is wrong. It doesn't sleep. Another note, a few pages later. Voices in the walls at night. And another, do not answer if it knocks. I felt a chill crawl down my spine, and for the first time, I wondered if the stories about the previous ranger weren't exaggerated. But I'm not the type to scare easily, so I shrugged it off and got back to work. That night, the knocking started. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks on the back wall of the station. Not the door, the wall, the concrete wall. I sat up in my bunk, disoriented. The station was pitch black. I kept the generator off after midnight to conserve fuel. I waited, holding my breath. 3 more knocks. Deliberate, even, like someone or something was tapping directly on the other side of the wall. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped quietly toward the back room. The air felt colder there, heavier. "Hello?" I called out. "Who's out there?" No answer, just silence. Then once again, knock, knock, knock. I should have opened the door and checked. Any normal ranger would have, but something, instinct, maybe, told me not to. Something in the cadence of the knocks felt wrong, like they were waiting for me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following morning, I went outside to check for prints. Snow had fallen lightly around dawn, coating the ground in a thin white blanket, perfect for tracking. I scanned the area carefully. Nothing by the door, nothing by the windows, but then I rounded the back of the building. Footprints, human footprints, dozens of them, not leading toward the station, leading away from it, as if a crowd had gathered at the wall, sometime in the night, and then walked single file into the woods. My chest tightened. Some prints were deep and crisp. Some were faint and dragged. Some didn't look human at all. The snow around them hadn't melted or disturbed in any normal way. It looked as if the prints had been placed there from above, stamped onto the surface. I followed them for about 20 yards until they disappeared among the trees, literally disappeared, as if the people who made them had simply stopped existing. On the way back, I noticed something else, something worse. One of the prints, a small one like a child's, was directly under my bedroom window, and next to it, written faintly into the frost on the glass, were 4 words: "Let us come in." I radioed the main station, told them someone might be trespassing around Black Pines. They said they'd send a team by the end of the week. A week. I didn't argue. I just tried to get through the next few days as normally as possible. But Black Pines didn't want normal. By day 5, the forest had started whispering. Not figuratively, literally. I was patrolling the West Ridge when I heard it, a soft murmur, like a dozen people speaking quietly just beyond earshot. I turned in every direction, trying to locate the source, but the sound seemed to move with me, circling slowly. I stood still. The whispering stopped. I took one step forward. It started again, louder this time. I pressed closer to a cluster of trees, convinced maybe there was a camp nearby. But the voices weren't coming from people. They were coming from the trees themselves. The pine trunks vibrated subtly, like something was moving inside the wood, pushing against the bark. I pressed my ear against one trunk. A voice, clear as day, whispered, "Come back to the station, Nathan." I stumbled backward, heart pounding. I had never told anyone out there my name. I didn't go off trail again after that. The next incident happened 2 nights later, the night I finally understood why the previous ranger had run. The knocking returned, but this time it wasn't 3 knocks, it was constant, relentless. A rapid, frantic pounding that moved along the walls of the station, circling me. Something or many somethings slammed their fists or hands or bodies against the concrete, trying to find a weak point. I grabbed my rifle, turned on every light, shouted into the darkness, "Who's out there?" The knocking stopped instantly. Silence swallowed the station. Then from the front door, knock, 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 slow, calm, patient. I stepped toward the door and stared at it. The metal handle trembled slightly, as if someone were leaning their weight against it from the outside. I swallowed hard. "Say something," I demanded. "If you need help, say something." Silence. Then a voice, a man's voice, whispered through the wood, "Let us in, it's cold." My blood turned to ice. It was the voice of the ranger who'd quit. The exact voice I had heard in old radio logs, but he was gone. He'd moved across the state. He wasn't anywhere near Black Pines. I can't, I stammered. "This isn't funny. Tell me who you are." The voice shifted, not in pitch, in tone, as if multiple people were speaking through the same mouth. "We are cold. Let us in. Let us in, Nathan. We know you're awake." I backed away from the door. The voices continued, now pressing against the windows, filtering through the vents, rising from beneath the floorboards. Some whispered, some begged, some cried. Then something slid under the door, a piece of paper. I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. It was a photograph of me, taken from outside the station window, the exact moment I'd leaned out earlier that week to replace an antenna. Someone had been watching me, someone impossibly close. I reached for the radio, but before I could grab it, all the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. The knocks faded, the voices fell silent, and for the first time since midnight, I heard the forest breathing again, that low, unsettling hum through the trees. Then something spoke inside the room with me. Not outside, not through the walls, inside. A whisper directly behind my shoulder. Turn round, I froze. My mouth went dry. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Something cold brushed the back of my neck, like fingertips made of ice. The voice whispered again, "Turn round, Ranger. We walked so far to see you." I forced myself to speak. "What do you want?" A long pause. Then, to be remembered. A sudden crack echoed through the room, like tree branches snapping. The floor shook violently. My flashlight flickered back on, dim and sickly yellow. And that's when I saw the walls. Not the walls themselves, the shadows on them. Dozens of silhouettes, tall ones, small ones, some twisted and hunched, some moving, even though nothing else did. They stood inches from me, crowding closer, their forms overlapping like pressed leaves. I stumbled backward, tripping over a chair. The shadows surged toward me, stretching, reaching. I bolted for the emergency hatch behind the storage unit, a tiny service exit meant only for maintenance. I tore it open, squeezed through, and fell hard into the snow outside. The forest roared with wind that hadn't been there a moment earlier. Trees bent as if something massive were moving between them. Whispering voices rose all around me, calling my name, begging me to stop. I didn't stop. I ran through the snow, over roots, through brush, tearing my jacket on every branch. I didn't look back, didn't breathe properly, didn't think. I just ran until the station was a distant shape in the darkness. And then, suddenly, everything fell silent again. A search team found me around sunrise, half frozen, delirious, babbling about voices and shadows and knocks in the walls. They didn't believe me, they never do. But they found the footprints, hundreds of them, forming a perfect circle around the station. And they found the photograph, the one that had been slipped under my door when they tried to retrieve the incident logs. The station was empty, completely empty. The notebooks, the radio, the furniture, even the concrete floor looked scrubbed clean, like no ranger had been there in years, like the forest had swallowed everything it didn't want remembered. I never went back. I sometimes hear knocks on my apartment wall, in the middle of the night, always 3 times. Always the same pattern I heard in Black Pines. I moved 3 times. The knocking follows me. Last week, I woke up to frost on the inside of my bedroom window. Someone had written 4 words with their finger. "Let us come in." I don't know what they are. Spirits, echoes, forest memories, something older. I don't know what they want from me now, but I know this: Black Pines is not abandoned, it is waiting. And one night, I am afraid the knocking will not stop until I find the answer.